Hello, my name is Jenna and I am a dog trainer in Southern California. Today I want to talk to you about potentially teaching your dog self-control. This is a phrase that gets put around a lot by particularly celebrity dog trainers, but also it's used a lot just in the industry in general. And I want to tell you that that is not necessarily what you want to teach your dog for a lot of reasons. First and foremost, teaching your dog self-control is pretty vague. It doesn't tell you exactly what life skill you're actually teaching your dog. And more importantly, the phrase in particular sort of implies, whether directly or indirectly, that the dog just sort of has the skill already in him and he just needs to bring it out and use it. And that's not at all how it works. What actually is happening is the dog needs to learn impulse control, and particularly this impulse control needs to happen in the brain. It's a learned behavior. So when a dog sees a stimulus, we're trying to get them to not be so compulsive and emotional towards that stimulus as soon as they see it. That requires the brain to do a lot of practice. It requires the brain to do a lot of things. First and foremost, right when they see the stimulus, one of the reasons they're pulling at the leash, one of the reasons they're barking when they see the dog or the stimulus, or one of the reasons that they're going over threshold is what we call it, is because much of that information is being sent to the back of the brain. So more specifically, it's going to the sympathetic nervous system. And what ends up happening is the sympathetic nervous system is reacting emotionally. I always picture sort of like bombs going off. And this back of the brain, which is the emotional part of the brain, is in control of a lot of things. But one of those things is adrenaline and the fight or flight response. So when we're teaching impulse control, what we're actually trying to teach is for the brain to receive the information from a stimulus and not send it to the back of the brain, but instead to send it to the front of the brain, to the prefrontal cortex, and have a much more logical, reasonable experience. The prefrontal cortex is in control of this higher reasoning experience. So that requires a lot of practice for the brain. It's not something that is just taught overnight, and it requires some cognitive maturity. So you have to really practice on making that brain creative. You have to engage the dog and make the dog more intellectual. So that takes time. It is true that there are going to be some genetic makeups and some personalities that are more likely to respond quicker to this logical, less emotional experience. But either way, it's a learned behavior. And when we use phrases like teach the dog self-control, and your dog just needs to learn self-control, we are seriously undermining the neurological process that we're trying to teach the dog. And that's not fair to the dog, because what ends up happening when we say teach the dog self-control, we tend to skip steps. We tend to assume, unintentionally usually, that the dog just has it in him and he just needs to use it. So we'll usually, for example, if we're talking about a dog on the street, a reactive dog on the street, we'll just assume that we're going to have to put the dog in a sit-stay and he just needs to deal with it. He just needs to take with it. And that's not healthy for the dog, because you're communicating with your dog as though he is logical in that moment. You are communicating with your dog as though he's being reasonable. And that's literally not where he is in his brain, literally. So he's never going to be on the same page as you. So we want to take smaller steps. And there are a lot of ways to teach impulse control to a dog. There are a lot of ways. And those will be imposed on a separate video. But one of the things that I want you guys to think about is not just assuming that the dog is going to figure it out in the first step. Assume that the dog needs baby steps, and that likely if you think he's failing over and over and over again, it usually means that you're undermining how much his brain has to work, right? You're undermining seriously how hard his brain needs to practice and rehearse not becoming emotional under these very heightened situations. So next time that you have a trainer that is using the phrase, your dog needs to use his self-control, likely that trainer isn't educated in the neurobiology of a dog. So I would err on the side of caution, and I would give the dog the benefit of the doubt always. And that's all for me today. If you liked the video, please like the video in the bottom, and subscribe if you're interested. And if you are one of my current clients, please give your dog a happy kiss from Auntie Jenna, and I'll see y'all soon.